Hey everyone, Cooper here, host of the fine podcast you're listening to. I just want to let you know that the episode you clicked on has a format that is very heavily inspired by a podcast called The Bookening. To be clear, our thoughts and opinions in this episode are our own, but the format is very similar to this podcast. I just wanted to give you a heads up and give credit where it is due. With that out of the way, enjoy the show. Coming up next, Booking It discusses War and Peace. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Booking It. I'm, of course, your humble and eloquent host, Mr. Cooper Cobbs, and joining me today is my good friend, Mr. Tanner Lewis. How you doing, Tanner?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking.
Absolutely. And I think I have to ask another question, which I think our listeners are dying to know. Which one of us is war and which one of us is peace?
I don't know.
Yeah.
This one seems worth fighting over, which I guess makes me war.
Okay. Good answer. I guess we won't get into Pride and Prejudice or any of the Sense and Sensibility or anything like that. But anyway, we're talking about War and Peace today. Arguably one of the greatest novels of all time. Definitely one of the longest novels of all time. And something that is a massive undertaking for anybody to read. And we're here to talk about it. But first, shout out to my little sister who right now is getting her cast taken off. So that's fun. And luckily, I had nothing to do with her arm getting broken. So, yeah.
It was
Luckily,
her
I
other
had
sister.
nothing. That's true. It was indeed. I've had nothing to do with either of my sister's broken arms, actually. But I did have something to do, obviously, with my broken leg. So, famously.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Running into a stump.
Okay, skiing into a stump sounds cooler, and also is true. I wouldn't be so dumb as to run into a stump and break my leg. I don't think. But I don't know. I am peace, so who knows what kind of hippie thing I would do. Maybe I would kick a tree stump after, a logger cut it down, because I am peace. So, okay, that's taking it too far. We're gonna jump right into this War and Peace, and I think first I just want to give a little bit of not context per se, but just background. Obviously, Tolstoy was a Russian citizen. He was actually a count, and I heard someone else put it this way: basically, all Tolstoy had to do was go to parties, hang out with his wife, and write books. So he had time to write War and Peace. That's pretty much what his life was attending parties, making his wife happy, and writing War and Peace, Anna Karenina, all his other stories. So if you're wondering how can someone write a book like this, how do they do that? It's because they're rich and they don't need to do anything else, pretty much. So throughout his life, Tolstoy struggled with all of these existential questions that I suppose all of us, at one point or another, probably at least, either if you're taking life seriously, you've probably asked. And that's, how far are you in the War and Peace, Tanner?
I finished part 1 last night, and I just moved into, book 1 last night, and right now I just moved into 1805.
Yeah, well, there's a part later
Or
on, and I won't
whatever that
spoil it,
is.
but Pierre basically goes on a little quest to answer those questions, and does these weird things. Anyway, Pierre is just Tolstoy in War and Peace. There's a little footnote, actually, I don't think it's dialogue, but it's just you're inside Pierre's head, and he's asking all these questions, and then there's a little star, and the footnote says, "These were questions that plagued Tolstoy all his life." Very helpful footnote. But anyway, Pierre was just an avatar for Tolstoy, and I think you can definitely see that he has a very fond attitude towards Pierre, and you can just see Pierre being the author of War and Peace, couldn't you? So, this weird philosophical guy, obsessed with all these weird things, So, when you're reading Pierre, and if there's a major character, question or moment, it's probably based off of Tolstoy. And the next piece I just want to talk about is our translations that we're reading. So I currently am reading the Constance Garnett translation. It is one that is in the public domain, which is probably why my copy hasn't, since I bought the Barnes and Noble edition of it. And it's regarded as a pretty good translation. It's one of the older ones. Apparently, it's supposed to be a Victorian novel version of War and Peace. Like it's, I mean, but it's still Russian, but it's just been Victorianized a little bit. And apparently, some people have issues with did she get all the? Is it a literal as in did she get all the translation right? Like apparently she was going deaf and she or no deaf blind, and she had someone like read the text to her, and then she had to translate it and all this kind of stuff. So there's some weird stuff going on, but as far as I can tell, it's a pretty good translation, and it seems to be getting a lot of the stuff that people like about Tolstoy. And Tanner, you want to tell the people what translation you're reading?
I'm reading the Maud translation, and unlike Cooper, I did not have enough time to look up what that means or how that
Yeah,
applies to my
so
translation.
apparently, and this is just according to TolstoyTherapy.com, the mods knew Tolstoy well, spent a long time living in Moscow, and spoke impeccable Russian. Tolstoy even gave the mods approval for their translation. The mod translation used to be more clunky, and it was criticized for including Anglicized character names. So I think that you have a second edition. I know they've done like two editions of these apparently. Um, like it looks like it used to be more literal, like more clunky. I mean, obviously, the more literal you go, you're gonna get a little bit more clunky. So that kind of seems what's happening. And the Anglicanized character names, like it'll be like Andrew instead of Andre, if that makes sense, or Natalie instead of Natasha, or something like
Yeah.
that. But it seems like a good translation, and people really like it. So you're good. You're golden.
Yeah, you kept on calling him Andre, and I'm just
Oh,
like,
so it's
who is
Andrew.
this
Oh, okay.
Andre?
So
And then
this
I'm
is
like,
still Andrew.
oh,
Okay.
it's
Yeah. No,
Andrew.
Andre is look. Just call him Andre, okay?
I was
Because
like,
that's his name.
wow.
Yeah, and actually, I've seen three different spellings because I've seen Andrew, like you have. Like, is it just EW, right? Yeah, and then I have
Yeah.
EY Andre, and then I've also seen EI Andre. So I've seen like a bunch of different Andre spellings, but he's Prince Andre, okay? And also maybe my favorite character. I don't know. We'll talk about that later. Um, okay, and then last thing I want to say, and I think this is true, Tolstoy is generally regarded as being one of the greatest authors of all time. And there's this quote. Hang on, I need to find out who said it. I don't know who said it, but I know somebody said it. And it's if the world could write, it would write like Tolstoy. And we're going to be evaluating the truth of this statement later on. Let me see. Who wrote this quote? All these like titles of articles are called this. And oh, there's a asterisk. It's gonna tell us at the bottom here. Where is it? Um, Russian short story writer Isaac Babel. So that's where that quote comes from. But anyway, I guess the first question is, well, Tanner, what do you think about War and Peace? And then secondly, do you think if the world could write, it would write like Tolstoy?
As far as what I think about War and Peace goes, I enjoy it so far. I have not had a whole lot of time to read it because
Yeah.
I've been working every day for the past month and a half, and now
Yeah, I
we're
mean,
leaving for
yeah,
Colorado.
really.
So hopefully I'll
Yeah.
have read more by Colorado.
The next time we do one of these.
But I also have a long list of movies that I have
Yeah.
lined up.
For sure.
So as far as that goes, I've enjoyed it so far. The writing is impeccable and really good. And I feel like I'm not far enough and haven't read enough to be able to say whether the world writes like Tolstoy or not.
Yeah, he's been much busier than I have, and he started it later than I did. So I am almost halfway, probably about 45% of the way through. And yeah, Tanner just finished, like you said, part one or book one, depending on your book. So as far as what I think about War and Peace, I really like it a lot. I think that he's, yeah, like you said, he's a master at writing. He's a master at characters. And I would say, I mean, obviously it's a little bit of hyperbole to say if the world could write or like Tolstoy, but I think for the most part it's true. And here's my case for it. First, and this is going to be a very general argument for why I like the book. So we're just going to start off with that. So this book is it's not a story. It's one thing I meant to say actually in context. Like Tolstoy said, it's not a novel. It's not a history book. It's more or less an epic poem. Like it just is. Like this War and Peace is. It's not a novel. It's not a history book of Russia. It is just you follow these characters from when the novel from when the book begins to when the book ends, and that's it. You're just hanging with the characters, experiencing them in their journeys and then the book ends. That's what I've heard, and that's what I've read so far. There is no necessarily huge plot to drive the book. There is no necessarily huge cataclysmic event that causes all these events to fall into place. There's nothing carrying the story along. It's just these people that you like to hang out with that are really well drawn characters, and you're hanging with a guy who's one of the greatest writers of all time, and he's just telling you this. And I think that's one of the reasons why the people think that the world would write like Tolstoy, is because the world isn't going to be telling these short narrative scenes comprising in a narrative arc. It's going to be telling this grand story, and Tolstoy just happened to look at that grand story and just take a section out of that and just give it to you. And honestly, all like if you're reading War and Peace, there are so many things to where if it were an actual story or an actual novel, you wouldn't conclude that in there. Like there are so many things, but you're just following these characters on in each of their respective journeys, and Tolstoy just loves giving it to you like that. And another thing is, it's just easy to get like Tanner, you just finished book one, and one of my favorite scenes from that, because there's only one good scene because they're all just parties besides this scene, is the funeral, right? Or the deathbed scene of what's his name, Bezukhov.
Yes.
And for me, that was really the first time where I really just got drawn into the book. And it was just, you got Pierre here. He's this young, illegitimate son of this great count. Everybody is fighting over his inheritance because he has no direct heir. And this weird lady is like pushing him around, telling him what to do. And there's just like this weird atmosphere. You got Russian Orthodox priests in there. You've got all these weird family members. And you can just enter into the scene and just experience it. And I think that's really what sets this book apart, is you can just enter into it and get swept along so easily. Anything to add on that?
I agree. The funeral scene was really good. just all the drama.
Yeah.
Don't go in there.
It's all these
Go
politics and all these family relations, and maybe you don't have you haven't had a family member die and then you're fighting over the inheritance maybe, but you can enter into, your relations and things like that for sure. Yeah. Yep. Let's see what else to say. I don't know how far we need to go in actually discussing the book, because I know you haven't read a lot and we've already kind of discussed all there is. Okay, let's do some characters actually. So, what characters have you been introduced to so far? Probably most of the characters.
Most of the characters. I've met Prince Andre, Pierre,
Prince Vasily,
the Prince,
Vasily.
whoever the what?
Have
Prince
you met
Vasily,
the Rostovs yet?
And then
It's like Natasha, Boris, Nikolai.
Yes. Wait, who were they? Yeah, I've met them. And then
That might be it, actually. Because
that's kind of, I'm reading about this. I can't pronounce this. Dolkohov. I don't know.
See.
I don't know. We're looking at the ranks right now, in part 2.
Kutuzov, maybe? Not Kutuzov.
With, I don't know. This is going to be a problem.
So spell it out for me.
Dolokhov.
Oh, it's Dolokhov. It's just spelled weird. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Well, you're just hanging out with the army, and this is actually one of my favorite parts. People say that they really
I'm enjoying this.
Yeah.
It's really intriguing seeing put on your great coats.
Yeah.
And then take off that gray, take off the blue one.
You're just hanging out with the Russian army.
Yeah.
When Napoleon's attacking. People really like the Tolstoy battle scenes, and in my mind, they're like the better version of the Red Badge of Courage. Do you remember reading that book at all?
I remember wanting to forget that I've read that book.
Yes, actually, that was one of the books that we aborted on the podcast early on. We decided to do Scarlet Letter instead. But at any rate...
We tried doing an episode on it.
No, we didn't.
Crashed.
No, we didn't.
Yes, we tried doing an episode, and it crashed and burned, so...
I don't remember that. Anyway...
We did another one.
At any rate, the battle scenes in that are just really, confusing, and it's this weird haze, and you're just running around doing weird things. That's... Do you remember that feeling at all while reading the battle scenes from that?
Yeah.
Tolstoy's is like a better version of that. Like it's confusing and it's all over the place, but it feels like you're in a real battle. It feels like confusion that someone actually might feel. So I really like those battle scenes as well. Do you have a favorite character as of yet, just in the snippet that you've read?
Yes. Andre. He's very relatable. It's
Mhm.
just get out of my face. Leave me alone.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, Andre's my favorite character too, and I don't know why. Like, I'm not a rich prince, son of a like this old count, but hey, he's in my opinion one of the most well drawn, and I just like hanging out with him. Later on, I also like hanging out with the Rostovs and Nikolay, Natasha, and that kind of thing. But I'd say Prince Andre is still my favorite character. I don't know why. I'm not a huge Pierre fan yet. I was early on, but the middle part of his story it's okay. But I'm still waiting for me to get really enraptured with Pierre, and I'm sure I will eventually. So, yep. I guess that's really it. We're just trying to do a short little episode on War and Peace real fast. Neither of us has finished the book. I mean, to be fair, Tanner reading part one, that's still like 100 pages of like lots of stuff. So, in a normal novel, it would be like 1/3 of a novel. So, like, don't be down on Tanner here. And he's busy. So, anyway, anything else to say about War and Peace, Tanner?
Just because it looks like I read only a little bit doesn't mean my reading skills are lacking.
No, that's right.
That's it.
Yep, that's your final thought on War and Peace. Yeah, I would if you're gonna. I think a person needs to read at least some Tolstoy in their life, whether that's Anna Karenina, War and Peace, some of his short stories, and War and Peace is really like it's not. Here's the thing. I just finished Moby Dick, and Moby Dick is different because it's Melville. Moby Dick is more dense than War and Peace is. War and Peace is not necessarily dense. It's easy to read. Maybe it's because it's in translation, but you can just enter into it, and get absorbed, and you're not gonna stumble over big words or anything like that. It's fairly easy to read, wouldn't you say, Tanner?
Yeah.
As far as that, like as far as classic books go, I mean, it's not gonna be your Tom Clancy novel or whatever, but it's gonna make your brain work. But it's a fairly easy approach. It's a fairly approachable classic novel. It's a classic book, I should say. As I said, it wasn't a novel earlier, but if you want to enter into it, I would applaud you, and I think it's doable. All you need to do is don't try and take out like this book in 300-page chunks at a time. Just read 20 pages a night or something like that. It's easy to do. The chapters are fairly short, and after a while you'll be chugging along and you'll be having fun because it's like I said, it's not like you need to keep reading to find out what's going to happen next. It's you're hanging out with these characters whom you love and hanging out with this writer who's a great writer during this entire time. So I think it's fairly easy to approach. Obviously, you're gonna have to, encounter stalling out like I have in the middle of the book, but it's worth reading at some point. I think. I don't know. Would you say that, Tanner?
Yes.
Yeah.
I also promise that I will contribute more to the
To the conversation next time.
Conversation.
Yeah.
next time.
No worries. All right. Well, I'm going to do some donor shoutouts. Tanner, tell the people where they would go if they wanted a donor shoutout.
If you wanted a donor shout out, you would go to patreon.com/bookinit and you would subscribe to any of our $5 and up tiers.
That's correct. All right. I'm going to say the patron, and you say which beach you think they would enjoy the most, okay? All right. Nana.
Gotcha. Myrtle Beach.
Ben Pappy and Wayla.
I'm running out of beaches.
Do you know all the Florida
Big
coast
Sur.
beaches? Big Sur is okay. Fair enough. It's a beach. Mike and Sylvia.
Seaside.
Seaside. Mr. Mike and Miss Laura.
North Island.
Aunt Jenny and Uncle Sam.
Oh, you gave me such a hard one. I'm
No,
not good
there's
at
so
this.
many. Think about how many beaches there
know,
are on the panhandle of
crap.
Florida and Alabama.
I know, but I don't know all of them.
Fine, I'll give you
Where's
one.
maps?
Panama City. Panama City Beach.
Panama City.
All right, next, Moses. Hey, I'm just going to help you out from here. Destin. Zara. Orange Beach, or Gulf Shores, whatever you want to call it. Anna, we've got, let me think. I'll do Sea Grove. It's right next to Seaside. Emily. Let's do Martha's Vineyard up on the East Coast. Becky.
How do you know?
I guess Miami probably has a beach somewhere. Miami Beach.
Miami Beach.
We've got Lizzie. Let me think. Now I'm running out of options here.
It's
Santa
hard.
Rosa. We've got Keenan. Last but not least. Gotta come with a good one here.
Oh, Port Aransas.
Port Aransas. Whoa. Okay. Texas Beach. All right. Anyway, thanks guys for listening. Appreciate that. Make sure if you can support us, make sure you go to the link that Tanner said. It's in the description. Support us at $5. We'll shout you out on the show. Otherwise, you get access to a bunch of cool patron content that we post regularly. Make sure you guys leave us a 5-star rating and review, and check in a few weeks for hopefully a next episode on War and Peace. If not, I'll do something on Moby Dick probably. And we're looking forward to being back next school semester. I don't think we've decided what we're doing yet, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And as soon as we know, we'll let you guys know what we're reading so you can follow along with us. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, and until next time.
Keep on booking it.